Our next speaker is Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch has worked for 33 years as a Wall Street security analyst, an investment banker, and a private investor in small emerging technology companies. He has been actively involved in following developments in the renewable energy sector since 1977 and is regarded as an expert in this field. During this time, he assisted a number of renewable energy companies with private placements and public offerings in the 1980s, 90s, and 2000s, and has raised over $600 million for renewable energy companies in the PV, solar, thermal, wind, and biomass areas. Peter holds a BA from Villanova University and an MBA from the State University of New York at Albany. Please welcome Peter Lynch.
Thanks very much, Mike. I don't have a slide show because Dr. Haldor sent me an email 15 minutes before I came here. I was going to be a listener as opposed to a presenter. So you'll have to forgive me for that. Mike basically covered, my background, and I've been interested in this area for years, and I'm constantly looking for new and exciting things. And I think, any questions people have, I certainly can help to address them along with the other guys on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And our last panelist to present is Rick Ledowski. Did I say that right? No, I probably said that wrong. 28 years in the renewable energy. He's founder of Prism Solar, founder of Sunwise Technologies, and founder of the New York State Energy Industry Association, and VP of Technology at Besic Corp. So please welcome Rick Ledowski.
Thank you very much. Just to get a lay of the land, how many people are here who are investors? Could you raise your hands? Okay, and how many are entrepreneurs or seeking funds? Okay, Bob and John, if you can get the doors. Okay, if you can just mingle, I think we're done. How do I identify investors? So, I've been described as a serial entrepreneur. I've started a lot of companies, a few companies and a couple organizations, and it's not as hard as it sounds sometimes. The first company I started, I took a course in actually solar thermal in DuPage College in Chicago, and got very interested. But I told the teacher that solar is great in Arizona, but it'll never work in Chicago. So he said, all right, everybody put your books down and follow me. So we proceeded to go out and back and actually build a solar collector. And at the end of the course, he actually took my hand and stuck it in the collector and burned my hand. So he made a real believer of me, and this is downtown Chicago. So it made a good point, and it actually inspired me quite a bit. So right after that, I got together with 10 friends, and we threw in $500 a piece and started Sunwise. Bought letterhead, incorporated the company, and took a hard look at what the solar industry was, and found out there was no industry at that time. There was no marketplace at that time. But there were some guys selling pool systems and heating up hot water, so it was interesting. We started a part-time business. Everybody kept their day jobs, and I would highly advise you keep your day jobs if you're just getting into solar. The funny thing about solar thermal is, at that time, if we were a Grumman dealer, and at that time, if you were a Grumman dealer, you automatically got shipped a mobile solar photovoltaic module, which was about $35 a watt at the time. So at that price, we hung it up on the wall, and it was a beautiful thing to look at, but we didn't see a commercial business in it. But as time went on and the tax credits for solar thermal went away, the price started coming down in photovoltaics, and we started seeing some real applications show up, primarily in the oil industry and gas industry for telemetry and cathodic protection, and really cost-effective applications. And it really started us to think about what the future holds for PV. So Sunwise went on to growing, and there was a time, don't tell anybody this, but there was a time when we had about $250,000 inventory in my garage. That was a startup. That's how you did it. And there were about 12 14 photovoltaic dealers and distributors in the country, and all of them were growing. And I learned enough about distribution to know I didn't want to be in distribution. So I luckily found a company in New York called VesiCorp, and VesiCorp was looking to get into photovoltaics. So I was looking to get out of distribution, so they bought my company. And I moved to New York and stayed with them a couple of years, and started another company after my stint with Sunwise called Direct Global Power. And that company was really a joint venture between myself and Niagara Mohawk. In between there, when I first came to New York and ran Sunwise for a little bit, the first thing I wanted to do is get a lay of the land, and I went right to NYSERDA. That was one of the first things I did, and I met a couple great people there, and I told them I wanted to start an industry association chapter. They said, well, first of all, there's no industry here in photovoltaics, but there are a lot of companies that are interested in getting involved in renewable energy, and we would love to help you. So along with a great Rolodex and some help in mailing, we created the first NYSEA steering committee and had a meeting, and we thought we'd get 12 or 15 people, and actually had about 75 people show up. So that was quite a while ago. That was about 16 years ago when that happened. And at that time, the industry in photovoltaics was just starting. It started growing very, very significantly. The joint venture that I entered into with Niagara Mohawk, now National Grid, was basically a consulting company to identify new technologies and help bring those technologies to market. So I had a great opportunity to work throughout the industry and work with a lot of different types of technologies, everything from Michael Gretzel's technology, nanocrystalline technologies, to high concentration systems. And I lucked upon a very unique technology that used holograms to concentrate sunlight onto photovoltaic cells. And when I found this technology at the time, somebody else owned it. I was a consultant for 3 years. And it was extraordinary because it allowed me to look at how this could impact the entire photovoltaic industry, because you can use this with any cell technology. So I got very excited about the technology, raised a little bit of money, bootstrapped that company also, but then it started to grow, it started to build, and it appeared that we need more and more money to grow the company. It landed up raising about $17.5 million over the last few years. About $8 million of that came from government. NYSERDA helped quite a bit, Department of Energy, economic development groups, and right now, it's a very, very exciting time in the photovoltaic industry because the marketplace is growing at such a pace that the demand, again, is starting to have a hard time to keep up. Depending if you're in cells or modules or wafers, it can be a good time or it can be a terrible time for you. Excuse me, I'm talking a lot lately. So, I didn't have a lot of prepared remarks for this because I thought it was going to be primarily question and answer, and I guess we'll get to that in a second. But if I can leave you with one thought before we get to the Q&A. If you're starting a venture, if you're looking for funds, one thing I would highly recommend is that you keep your initial goals in mind while you're going through your searches, because you're going to find money in a lot of different places. You're going to run into angels that have great technical knowledge. You're going to run into VCs that have no technical knowledge. And you're going to run into strategics that have far more technical knowledge than you do.